Well, it's been long enough now. The Stranger Things finale came out on the last day of 2025, and there have been a lot of complaints. It's even been compared to the Game of Thrones finale, but it isn't rated quite as bad. So what exactly went wrong? Because they did defeat the bad guy. They all got their happy endings, but there was a lot that went wrong. So this video is just going to be talking about all those things, and I'm going to divide it into 4 separate categories. Category 1, it is simply anticlimactic and boring. The Mind Flayer is fully woken up 1 hour, 1 minute, and 22 seconds into the episode, and then Vecna is fully impaled 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 3 seconds into the episode. And then the Mind Flayer is like completely down, dead, 13 seconds after that. Right, so if you're considering them two separate bad guys, so 13 seconds in between. This means that the final battle lasted 6 minutes and 41 seconds. This is ridiculous. For fans who watched season 4 and were explicitly shown and told that Vecna can't be defeated with guns or fire, and the Demogorgons can't be defeated with that, it just feels honestly ridiculous watching. It feels like nothing. I love this tweet that says it pretty well, that watching the finale truly just doesn't feel like watching the same show at all, the one that fans originally fell in love with. Additionally, the stakes are just too low, and I think we should have realized that this would happen when they couldn't even kill off Ted Wheeler. And he had I don't even understand why he's alive. I felt nothing when Steve was about to die because I knew that they weren't going to go through with it, and the only scene that I moved slightly at was when Hopper thought that he had shot Elle, and it was scary, it felt real, and then it even felt scary and real when you found out it wasn't real, when you found out that was Vecna. That felt intense and suspenseful, and they have that talk after, and it was after, I don't know, but it all is for nothing, which I'll get further into later as well. Throughout the show, there's a lot of foreshadowing and hints, and then those are seemingly ignored as well. Like, Will fully parallels Henry with being this sensitive child and being possessed by the Mind Flayer. If you watched the first Shadow, the Stranger Things play, you probably know where I'm going with this, but we were told that Season 5 was written with the first Shadow in mind, and the first Shadow was written with Season 2 in mind. And if you've watched the play, you probably know why. It parallels it a lot, very, very heavily. In Season 2, Will is able to fight off the Mind Flayer with the help of Mike and his family going through the memories, right? His happy memories. And the play doubles down with this question of, can love defeat fear? We find out that Henry could have fought off the Mind Flayer with his love for Patty and Patty's love for him until Brenner discourages that and convinces Henry of the opposite, and that's when the Mind Flayer fully takes over him. Then in Season 5, we learned that Max didn't even need music. All she needed was Lucas and his love. So again, they're just doubling down on this topic of love. Love will save you from the Mind Flayer, from Vecna, from all that stuff. So there's a lot of emphasis on love and memories also, because it's Will's good memories that are told to him that protect him or save him from the Mind Flayer in Season 2. And then he goes through those same exact memories when he gets his powers. So we know that the memories are important. They mean something. They're seemingly a build-up for conflict. The adults in the story have no memory of Henry, or it seems like they don't, despite going to high school with him and having direct conflict with him in high school. And then Will's birthday is seemingly forgotten, and it's like, how can that be a mistake, right? And then there are small, like, memory mistakes, and those are weird. Joyce forgets how old Will was when he went missing. She says he's 11, but he was 12. And he says some weird things in his coming out scene. And it seems to lead up to this big memory fight with the Mind Flayer. Maybe in Will's mind or whatever, where love defeats fear. Like the play said, like Season 2 said, like other parts in season 5 said, and then it doesn't, right? This love for Will, it could be with his family, it could be with his friends, it could even be self-acceptance. If they really just didn't want to go with the route of romantic love, it could have been accepting himself, that kind of love to fight the Mind Flayer. And then they just didn't do this at all. They ignored all of their prior writing. Why? And here I have to bring up the eye thing. They seemingly foreshadow, that he will lose his eye or something will happen to his eye. There's so many different points where they have cool imagery or bring up Phineas Gage, and it all seems to lead up to that. And even with his eyes bleeding in season 5, and then they just didn't do any of that. And did the Duffers just think that that looked cool, so they just kept doing it? Why were they constantly putting things through his eye? Not that I want him to suffer more, but what was up with that? And I think that epilogue is just way too long. It lasts almost an hour. It is just long, boring, and unnecessary for the character stories. And I'll go into more details regarding the epilogue later in this video, but I have more problems with that too, despite it, without it just being long and boring. In the finale, the Duffer brothers broke one of the largest rules of storytelling, show don't tell, right? And I think a lot of Netflix shows also have that problem where they just repeat the same thing again and again for viewers who are on their phone or something like that. And yeah, Stranger Things definitely has a problem with this, because we find out that Will builds the tunnels from Vecna just telling him, and it's like, okay, that could have been so much more interesting. We find out that the Upside Down is actually a wormhole because Dustin just finds a notebook, and it's like, okay, there weren't any better ideas here. I felt like that was breaking that show don't tell rule, or making something that should have been suspenseful and cool just kind of boring. In the end, the finale was just not enough and not satisfactory for longtime viewers and actual fans of the show, but the visuals of the big scary monster may have been enough for casual viewers or the general audience. Category number 2. The Duffers have a fundamental misunderstanding of horror as a genre, what works with it and what doesn't, right? They want their show to have elements of horror without really following through with them. Throughout the whole show, they add things for shock value or additional angst without proper discussion or a message to take from those things, right? And I'm going to list many examples of this, but just know there's so many more that I'm leaving out as well. The biggest example of this is likely a storyline with the pregnant women. We see these terrifying ideas of women being used. They are kidnapped, assaulted, drugged, and assaulted some more. Then they're simply ignored. It seems that they have died in the Upside Down from the bomb. And something as big as this just can't be ignored in the way that the Duffers allowed that to happen, right? There's more to say here about scenes such as the one where Mike is forced to jump off the cliff, and he does, or the level into which Dustin was hurt by bullies, or how they hurt Erica, or the things Elle's mother was put through. And these are all just ignored later on as well. There's no proper discussion of them. And that's a problem, right? That's not how horror should work. In my opinion, no character fits this better than Will and all the things he goes through throughout the 5 seasons, right? Now, listen to this and see if it sounds familiar. The think tank for inclusion and equity defines trauma porn as art or media that exploits the pain, suffering, and brutalization of marginalized people for the sake of entertainment. These depictions cater to non-marginalized viewers and characters rather than exploring the experience, situation, or point of view of the people being victimized. Sound familiar? I mean, that describes Will 100%. It's Will that goes through physical abuse. He's poor. He's bullied for his sexuality. He's kidnapped. He's further abused and tortured for his sexuality throughout the entire show. His personal conflict outside of the supernatural elements of the show is his sexuality and how his love for Mike pains him, right? Without this becoming a love story, his conflict has no resolution. Why include that love as part of his sexuality conflict at all if there weren't going to be any proper resolution for it? His sexuality storyline outside of his love for Mike isn't properly concluded at all either, though. The Duffers fail to understand how horrifying his coming out is to queer people. It sucks that the conclusion to the storyline that has lasted 5 seasons is him practically being forced to come out out of fear that it'll be used against him if he doesn't, and then sort of begging for his friends to understand that this doesn't make him different from them, and then apologizing for having a crush, even comparing it to Robin's hallway crush, and saying, hey, I had this crush before, but don't worry, I don't anymore. You guys don't have to worry about that. That is horrifying for your queer main character, and queer people who are fans of the show don't want to see that. Noah Schnapp, Will's actor, said in an interview that he had to ask the Duffers to include a scene to better wrap up a part of Will's story. I stupidly assumed that this would be a scene with Lonnie, because there's not really any proper resolution to things he put Will and the rest of his family through. But no, the scene that Noah asked for was the scene on the radio tower, where Mike and Will have that final discussion. So if not for Noah asking, there would be nothing there either, and that is insane, considering that scene wasn't even, the best either. Then there's been some debate on if some of Will's scenes constitute being sexual assault or a metaphor for it, right? And we see these long vines shoved down his throat from Vecna. We hear Vecna say that the less Will struggles, the less it'll hurt, and Will say that he felt it everywhere. And this is relation to the Mind Flayer, not to Vecna. But I feel like it's quite obvious. He literally had Vecna's vines forced into him, and he's impregnated by them. But I think it'll be easier to understand that the Duffers don't know what they're doing, right? These scenes were meant to be gross and just as hard to watch as possible, and this is only for additional shock value and angst, not to fully talk about what this means, right, or what it looks like, the things he's saying and stuff like that. And that's gross writing. That's something that should have been taken a lot more seriously, because fans do connect to that, right? Yeah, that's just gross. And I think it's just easier to understand that it wasn't meant to be real or metaphor or what. It was just meant to be gross, because they just want to cause stress for their main character. The Duffers use their three of their main characters as the gay character who faces homophobia, the black character who faces racism, and the disabled character who faces ableism, without any proper discussion on the bigotry they experience and how it affects them. I think it's important to say that bigotry is horrific, and it can be an important element to horror as a genre, and I think Stephen King does this pretty well in it, definitely. But the way it's used in Stranger Things, it just makes the writing come off as misogynistic, homophobic, racist, and ableist, right? You have to be a lot more careful with how you're writing these things, because, like I said, it is horrific, but it can't just be written for shock value or angst. You have to discuss it at the end. You have to have a message around it. It has to mean something in your show. Okay, on to the third category. The Duffers treat their characters terribly. They prove their villains right and their characters wrong, which just shouldn't happen in television. Will is told in a Vecna vision that his love is unrequited, and Vecna is correct. His character's conflict is watching every other character get their love story and not getting his own, and that's never fixed. Hopper thinks he's a curse on his family after losing Sarah, which he considers it his fault. And instead of proving that wrong, he loses his second daughter. This isn't good writing. no one is treated worse in regard to this than Elle, their main character. She feels alone because of her powers, like she has no place in this world, and then she kills herself. The answer to her main problem is dying. Even in Mike's dumb story, which was clearly only added to not get as much hate for having a 16-year-old victim of abuse commit suicide, she's still completely alone. Again, if she felt like there's no place for her with other people in this world, that doesn't solve it either just because she's not dead. She's still completely alone with no place in the world. Her death is not only terrible writing as a main character's conclusion, but also sends a terrible message that death is the only way to escape something like abuse or a cycle of abuse, right? No one is treated worse in this show than Elle or Jane. Much of the fandom has made an attempt to start referring to her only as Jane, which I struggle with a lot because the show itself never puts in effort to use her real name. I feel like they should have allowed her that piece of identity in season 2 when she learns about it. I don't think it was too late to add that in season 2. Instead, her finding her real name and her mother and her siblings is treated like a phase and just like a joke of the series. Like, it's just a small phase that she went through. But those things are important. It's her real name. It's her real mother. I understand that part of it was the identity she found with Callie, and how that was a phase, but the rest of that shouldn't have been. That doesn't make sense. And this isn't very dissimilar to her reclaiming sort of her identity with Max in season 3. It's there, and it's awesome, and then that's kind of forgotten about later as well. That's treated just like a joke and a phase. And it's like, okay, well, that should have been part of her identity because that was important. That's something she needs as a character identity because she's the only character who doesn't really have that in season 1 and 2. Elle's character arc is very, very similar to multiple misogynistic tropes. It absolutely is the disposable woman trope where a female character is killed for a male character's development. It's somewhat close to the born sexy yesterday trope, where there's a sexy female character who's extremely childlike or naive, and is often the love interest for the main character. I'm not saying Elle is presented as sexy in season 1, to be clear, but she absolutely is that romantic interest with a lack of normal understanding for her age, and this is proven by her first kiss, which is presented as a cute moment, not sad or anything, and this happens before she knows anything about her own identity, and that is sad. That, to me, that should have been like a sad thing and something that they could have worked on and said, hey, we got into this too fast, and that could have been a part of the plot for Mike and Elle, how they could start again after she knows more, and, they're obviously both a bit older. That would have been a good plot, but it's weird that is treated like some cute moment, and because it's just not. The Duffers actually even said in an early interview that Elle's character is heavily inspired by an anime called Elfen Lied, which has a female character who has the telekinetic powers and is very childlike and naive and doesn't understand, and she's also often topless, and people have criticized that show for its use of the born sexy yesterday trope, which is very common for like alien type characters. So that, along with like calling Elle like ET and stuff, it's weird, right? I hope we can agree there. It's weird. I'd say her character is also extremely close to the manic pixie dream girl trope, where there's a quirky female character whose personal story is usually underdeveloped as well, and being used to help a male character become also quirky, which in this case is Elle representing Mike's childhood, which is really stupid. Like her representing his childhood, and the loss of it when she dies, it's just so stupid to me. I think female characters shouldn't exist just as plot devices for male characters. And this also goes for her dying being what Hopper needed to get over Sarah's death. And then that point also contradicts that she was the opposite from Mike in season 3. She was representing him growing up and becoming more like the other boys, becoming more interested in girls. That was the whole thing in season 3. It doesn't align. And I said this before, but her death sends a terrible message that that's just the only way to escape abuse. This is wrong, right? Your main character, a 16-year-old girl who suffered abuse, shouldn't kill herself as her conclusion. That is just not good writing. That is not a good show. It's not a good lesson or message or theme or any of that. It's just not. Her death focuses entirely on Mike after using Will's feelings and Will's love for Mike to repair the relationship, kind of, in season 4, and then it kind of just ditches any possible repairs it made when Mike still doesn't say he loves her at the end. It's his main conflict in season 4, and he kind of figures it out, kind of not. And then at the end, she says she loves him and gives him time to say it back before she kisses him, and he just stays silent. It feels like awkward watching it. Do the Duffers not understand that the conflicts they present in their show are meant to be resolved at the end of it? Why wouldn't this simple thing be resolved? Or not even that simple, but why would they make a mistake like this? Because I feel like this is a mistake. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. I don't understand. I just think it was weird to focus entirely on Mike, and I think it definitely should have been focused more on Hopper, Will, Jonathan, Joyce, Max, of course, Max. It was just weird. I did not like that at all. After Will's love for Mike is used to convince him that he suddenly fell in love with Elle, unaware that those words actually came directly from Will and his feelings, Will's love is just sidelined and ignored. And this is similar to Robin and Vicky. They are used to help Will gain his powers, and then they are also ignored. Not only are they ignored, they are insinuated to break up in the epilogue for no reason. That is completely unnecessary. The epilogue literally has every character conform, turn into a worse version of himself, which led to one of the bigger fan theories called Conformity Gate, that the last episode wasn't actually real, it was just a vision from Vecna. And a lot of people got on board with this, even the general audience, for about a week, until nothing came out on January 7th. This theory was also called Vecna's Curse Gate and Playgate for a little while after Volume 2. And current believers of it who think that there is still more content to come out refer to it as Love Wins Gate. So I guess we'll have to see. I think what I want to say here is that this isn't fan delusion. It's picking up on hints and foreshadowing that was encouraged in earlier seasons, right? This Conformity Gate and stuff like that is embarrassing for the writers. That they wrote something so bad fans have to latch onto these things. It's not embarrassing for the fans who were wrong or whatever. That's just something I feel very strongly about. That I do not find that at all embarrassing for fans who believe in that. I would feel so embarrassed if I were the Duffers that I wrote something with so many mistakes, so many plot holes that people have to do that. And yeah, I just want to say that. Going back to how they conform, Mike now looks exactly like his father, which is really weird. He's the complete opposite of the nerdy D&D playing Mike from season 4, which is probably when he was most himself, when he was with Eddie and the Hellfire Club and all that stuff. Epilogues exist to show beneficial change in characters' lives, right? So why push that a beneficial change is abandoning the parts of yourself that are unique and nerdy and cool? This is not a show for outcasts, as they like to claim. And also I have to say, why are Ted and Karen even still together? That in the story that Mike creates for the rest of the party, Will is insinuated to be in a gay bar, which bothers me. It focuses entirely on his sexuality and not his actual personality. I think that's wrong. Then we also get a scene with the teens who are now adults. And this feels like a scene between the actors. It doesn't feel like the characters at all. They joke about Steve still sleeping around a bit, which completely gets rid of any possible character arc that he went through not being that anymore. Nancy also looks just like her mother, and she's back working at a newspaper place, even though she already went through this arc in season 3. And then what bothers me the most is Robin. She is dressed completely feminine. Her hair is completely feminine. She looks pretty much like a trad wife. And here's the thing. People can change, right? Duh. She can change. Lesbians can wear feminine clothing or masculine clothing. It's just that we've heard her say before that she hates dressing like that. And then, like I said, epilogues are there to show a beneficial change in the characters' lives. If she is only shown this way, more feminine presenting in the epilogue, when she said in the past that she hates that, it comes off like her being masculine is childish, something she needs to change, that maturing for her is becoming more feminine, right? And I don't think that's a good point to put out there. I don't think that's a good message to put out there. Essentially saying that her masculinity is just something she needs to grow out of. I just did not like that at all. There's no way for me to end this category than saying, do the Duffers not understand their characters at all? And again, this is not the show for outcast that they once claimed it was. Do they still claim it? They better not, bro. The fourth and final category for this video is all the plot holes and mistakes throughout the show, or throughout season 5, I'll say. There are so many. There's a doc online that has 84 listed. They're not all plot holes. It's a lot of just things that are never explained or don't really add up, and mistakes, right? So check that out. The biggest thing to me is Will. Throughout the whole show, he's hurt by every little thing done to a Demogorgon. They go through literal hell to keep him alive in season 2 while trying to get rid of the Mind Flayer from him. And then suddenly Elle can impale Vecna, and he's fine. We don't see him at all. He's just totally chill. That, to me, is like the biggest mistake. I don't know. I guess they said they didn't want to focus on him. Okay, Barrow. Well, it's not explained. It makes no sense with the rest of everything we've watched. I can't, bro. A lot of people were also really upset with the sudden disappearance of the military. I will say this wasn't the biggest deal to me. I'm able to ignore it. But, yeah. They suddenly just don't care about any of this now that Elle's dead. It seems pretty unlikely given the things that, they were doing. Especially Nancy. With her guns. There's a bunch of stuff that's hinted at to be really important, and then that stuff just isn't explained. Like why Vecna needed the 12 kids, why he needed the 4 gates, or even why the Upside Down is still stuck on the day Will went missing. I'm personally really bothered with how time and water work in the Upside Down. Time kind of connects that thing with it being stuck on November 6th. But then there's different mistakes there, and it's like, oh, you probably should have paid more attention to these mistakes. You know? I feel like. But we see in season 1 and in season 4 that the Upside Down doesn't have water. There's a part with Barb in Steve's pool, there's no water, and then Lover's Lake in season 4, there's no water, but now they need water for Elle's tank, and they have it. So I don't like that. I think they should have thought of some other way, because again, why make this mistake? Or not consider it. And there are also just a bunch of like small mistakes, I guess. And it was these mistakes that led up to the theory of conformity gate originally. I think like the biggest one that people saw at first was the lever going from gray to red, then the WSQK tower went from red to gray, and it's like, okay, that's suspicious. And then I kind of mentioned this before, but in Will's Coming Out talk, he talks about getting milkshakes from Melwald's, and it's like, okay, well, that's a convenience store, and the only time you're getting milkshakes there is when Henry was a teenager, and he was getting milkshakes there. And then he also says he loves getting lost in the woods. Like, why the hell did Will say that, bro? Be so for real. Oh, and also Mike calling Joyce by her first name when he's literally never done that before. I don't know if that was like a big point. I saw that on Twitter once. Someone was like, hey, that's weird. I'm sure it means something. It did not mean anything. It was a mistake. Again, not a super big mistake, but it's just like, hey, he's always called her Mrs. Byers, or Miss Byers. Now he's only calling her Joyce. What's up with that? Again, it's like, it's such a small mistake, but just like, why? If, I don't know. I'm not a writer. I'm gonna let it be a little bit because it is pretty small. These like small mistakes just all combine with like general strangeness of volumes 2 and 3. And then additionally for me, like the biggest proof of conformity, which is why I was like, oh, maybe, was at the graduation, they all hit the Mind Flayer pose, the like, that Henry does, you know? And that pose is used in, what season? Season 3. Yeah, season 3. To hint at Billy being played, and it's like, okay, why on earth is everyone hitting that pose, bro? That was like the main thing for me, and then like the lever and stuff, and the water tower. I was like, not the water tower, the radio tower. Let's all say that there's just so many mistakes. I feel like that amount is just not normal for a TV show. There should have been more consideration, and I think there has been in the past. Like even season 1, season 2, like there were small mistakes. I think especially with the Upside Down, like, how is Will able to communicate through the lights? That doesn't really make sense, but I think you're kind of able to look past a lot of it. I think there's just so many here that it was really hard to look past. But I also don't feel like that's the biggest part to me. I think I already discussed some of the bigger parts that bother me. This is why I think, or how the Duffers ruined their TV show in the last few episodes. To be clear, it's not like entirely ruined. It was a good show. It's just, you can have a great show, and if it ends bad, it's kind of like, okay, well now I can't watch it ever again because the ending sucked. If you're gonna make something suck, why not make it season 2, episode 7? Is that the episode? I think that's the one. Why not, like, of course, the whole show doesn't suck. I'm not saying the whole show sucks. I'm saying that the finale sucks, and it makes it really, really hard to rewatch, even though I want to. I really find that the general audience of the GA is pretty divided on this. A good amount of them latched onto the conformity gate stuff. I don't know if they're still into it, but there's definitely also a bunch who are like, oh, it's chill. I'll just watch whatever. Big scary monster. Which, you know, is fine. I think we should like analyze the shows we're watching and talk about the messages that they put out. But if you just enjoyed it and you're not like a super involved watcher, you're on your phone, which also I think is fine. Like, you go on your phone and watching TV, that means nothing. Like, that's fine. I do that for stuff all the time too. I'm glad you enjoyed it. But if you did enjoy it, why? Actually, like, what about it was nice to you? What about it did you really enjoy? Can you see yourself rewatching the whole show? Are any of you doing that? Because I still can't. Let me know in the comments below. I am curious to hear everyone else's thoughts. I think I also complain about a lot because I really like the show. So some of these things aren't super big to the general audience, even if they do hate the finale. That some of these things, like the horror stuff, that's what's really important to me because I'm a horror fan, and I'm not super into like splatterpunk because I just need more to it. Like, you can't just talk about bad things just to talk about bad things. There has to be more to it, you know? So I don't know if this would bother everyone else, but it bothers me a lot. So, yeah, I'm curious to hear from all of you. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the Stranger Things shirt and the Will-O-Wisp.